You may have heard in the news by now that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are going to be deposed, that means sitting down for questions under oath, as part of a defamation case brought against Meghan Markle by her half-sister. You may have wondered what this means, you might have wondered what the case is about, at least in broad legal terms, and so I thought this video might explain it for you. And some press and media articles seem to be suggesting that this could be the Amber Heard case all over again, because it's based in defamation. So naturally I will cover a little bit about defamation law in this video, and what pertains to this particular couple, which are now going to the discovery process and going to be deposed. So let's talk very broadly about what the statements are. Well, there are both direct and indirect statements that are being complained of by Meghan's half-sister. Some of them contained within the book Finding Freedom, and some of them contained within the interview with Oprah Winfrey. Now, of course, the interview statements by Meghan herself will be direct statements because she said them herself. The indirect statements, there's going to be quite some degree of argument over, because Meghan was not the author of the book. However, one might argue, and I suspect it will be argued, that she was effectively the ghostwriter behind the book and emails that she'd exchanged with Jason Knopf, because much of the detail within those emails are doubtless going to be brought forward as evidence that she was ultimately the ghostwriter behind the book, and therefore indirectly making those statements which have defamed her half-sister Samantha. So what broadly are those statements? Well, starting at the beginning, Samantha Markle's lawsuit is effectively claiming that Meghan has made demonstrably false and malicious statements. The maliciousness about it is because of the public figure aspect, which we've talked about in a great deal in another trial just last year. These statements, the lawsuit continues, made to a worldwide audience including roughly 50 million people in 17 countries who watched the interview. Broadly speaking, Samantha Markle is claiming that she's been defamed by Meghan's direct and or indirect statements said during the interview, and which seemed to pop up during Harry's memoirs and the Netflix series, to the effect that Meghan grew up as an only child. Now, Samantha Markle is saying that this is not true, and her lawsuit filing said that Meghan published and disseminated, spread about, false and malicious lies, which have subsequently subjected Samantha to humiliation, shame and hatred on a worldwide scale, and furthermore that they spread lies worldwide about their father, Thomas Markle. It further alleges that Meghan had orchestrated, quote, a premeditated campaign to defame and destroy her sister's and her father's reputation and credibility in order to preserve and promote the false rags to royalty narrative that she gave in the interview and thereafter. I was about to say you may recall, but you may well not have watched it, but during the Netflix series, Meghan did speak about her relationship, or lack thereof, with her sister Samantha, saying, and I quote, "My half-sister, who I hadn't seen for over a decade, and that was only for a day and a half, suddenly it felt like she was everywhere. I don't know your middle name, I don't know your birthday. You're telling these people that you raised me and you've coined me Princess Pushy." During the same episode, a statement from Samantha Markle reads that she maintains that she and Meghan had a close relationship until 2018, and that the media fabricated quotes that have been attributed to her. In September last year, Meghan filed a motion in court to stop these depositions, but the presiding judge dismissed this motion, ruling that Meghan does not show that unusual circumstances justify the requested stay, or that prejudice or an undue burden will result if the court does not impose a stay. Defendant Markle, the judge continues, does not satisfy the high standard required to stay discovery. Stay just means to put on hold indefinitely until the court rules otherwise, pending the resolution of a dispositive motion. So in other words, Harry and Meghan are going to discovery and they're going to depositions. This is a far stretch away from the never complain and never explain. But as many people have commented, there seems to have been a lot of complaining lately, and now it seems there's going to need to be a lot of explaining. So as I said, some people have wondered what this case was all about. Those are broadly the statements and what's going on. Now, just a brief word on defamation as promised. There are several elements to defamation that need to be proven, and the burden here is going to be on Samantha to prove these. First of all, that there is a false statement, as in a fact, not an opinion. So not just someone's opinion, but a definitive statement of fact, this pertaining to the statement itself. Secondly, that this statement of fact, being false, was about the plaintiff or the complainant in the case, i.e. the proof that the false statement was about Samantha Markle. Not such a difficult thing to overcome thus far, although there is one difficulty which I'll come back to in a moment. Thirdly, that this must be made to a third party. Well, there were tens of millions of third parties, so that's not such a difficult thing to overcome. Fourthly, that it caused harm, reputational or financial kind of harm, not a physical harm in that sort of sense. And the standard of proof is going to be on the balance of probabilities, just meaning more likely than not, i.e. 51-49 scenario, as opposed to 50-50. Certainly not to the criminal standard, so that anybody is sure that this happened, just that it's more likely than not. Very common defences to defamation claims are that it's of the truth, or that it's some of honest opinion, which is got to be based on some kind of factual basis or matrix or experience. For example, it can't simply be, I think that guy is a fraudster, with no more, because that's likely to harm their reputation. But if I've got no basis upon which to say that as my opinion, then the opinion bit doesn't really count. I would have to show why it's my opinion. Therefore, if it's based on some kind of fact or experience, then I could say that that's just my opinion based on my experience. So what am I to think about this whole case? Well, there's a number of difficulties, first of all. Firstly, with the indirect statements, it's going to be a hurdle to show that she was actually behind the statements within the book, Finding Freedom. Clearly, the arguments are going to be that that content could not have been in the book, but for the fact the information came from her. Secondly, when it comes to the opinion aspect, she may well say that this is just my experience, and in fact her lawyers have thus far said this is an entirely subjective experience from a child's perspective, how they genuinely felt growing up. But if that can be disproven to say that that is just not realistic on the balance of probabilities, then that experience-based honest opinion is likely to fall down. Nonetheless, it's a hurdle to overcome. But either way, as I said, the case is pushing forward. It's going to go to deposition and to discovery, which in English terms, a deposition is an interview under oath, which is recorded, and all of the questions put by Samantha and her lawyers, Meghan, will have to answer. Whereas discovery is essentially the process we call disclosure. This is the general broad principle of law where you need to give all of the information that you intend to rely on for your case, or that might affect your case and that your opponent might rely on. So the other party has everything that they could expect to have to be able to answer your claim against them, and thus all of the relevant material and evidence comes to court, so the court can make a definitive ruling of fact. So I hope you found that an interesting and digestive overview. Please do smash that like button and subscribe. Leave your thoughts and your questions below. What do you think of the case? Do you think this should even be in the media? Do you think the Netflix series and the interview and the book and all of those things should have been published, or should they have just remained quiet? All of these are questions that you can answer in the comment section below, and I thank you for watching.